What if I told you that one of the biggest financial crimes in history didn't happen on Wall Street? It didn't involve a criminal mastermind hiding in the shadows of New York or London. It happened in Malaysia, a small, peaceful country where billions of dollars meant to uplift its people were stolen and used to fund the most outrageous lifestyle the world has ever seen. Private jets, super yachts, Hollywood films, diamond necklaces and matching pink diamonds for pop stars. This wasn't a heist pulled off in the dead of night. It was executed in broad daylight by politicians, bankers, and one mysterious man at the center of it all, his name, Jho Low. And what he did is almost beyond belief. This is the story of the 1MDB scandal, a tale of greed, power, and the staggering cost of corruption.
Kanye West, Kim Kardashian, Leo DiCaprio, Benicio del Toro, Michael Phelps, 300 people, everybody had to sign an NDA.
We're all thinking, like, how does this man attract all these big-time Hollywood celebrities? What we didn't realize is a lot of them were getting paid just to be there.
Jho Low didn't look like the villain of a billion-dollar crime saga. Short, chubby, quiet. You wouldn't glance twice if you saw him on the street. But behind that modest appearance was a man pulling the strings of some of the world's most powerful institutions. He wasn't a politician. He wasn't a movie star. But he lived like both. And for a while, he lived better than both. His parties were legendary. In Las Vegas, he once rented out a 5-acre lot on the Strip just for his birthday. Kanye West performed. Kim Kardashian was there. Leonardo DiCaprio, Robert De Niro, Bradley Cooper, the A-list wasn't invited, it was paid to show up. For Jho Low, nothing was impossible if the price was right. He once flew Leonardo DiCaprio and Jonah Hill to Australia just for New Year's Eve. They counted down the new year, jumped on a private jet, and did it all over again in Las Vegas on the same day. He didn't just throw parties. He threw history's most expensive nights out, and all of it funded by money that wasn't his. But how did this quiet, unassuming man rise to such insane levels of wealth and power? To understand that, we need to rewind the clock back to Malaysia, a country struggling with its economy, trying to find new ways to grow and prosper. It started with a dream, a government fund, One Malaysia Development Berhad, or 1MDB, a noble idea. A fund created to boost the country's development, build infrastructure, create jobs, and improve the lives of its citizens. But what no one realized was that this very fund would become the personal playground of Jho Low and the corrupt elite who helped him. And at the heart of it all was Malaysia's Prime Minister, Najib Razak, a man born into power. His father was the second Prime Minister of Malaysia. His family often referred to themselves as the Kennedys of Malaysia. Najib had everything: wealth, power, influence. But apparently, it wasn't enough. When Jho Low entered the picture, he brought something Najib couldn't resist: money, and lots of it. The two became the perfect partners in crime. Najib had the political power, and Jho Low had the financial wizardry to make billions appear out of thin air. Or so it seemed. In reality, every dollar was borrowed, every deal was a house of cards. And the Malaysian people were about to foot the bill. On paper, 1MDB was a shining example of national ambition. Malaysia didn't have surplus oil wealth like Kuwait or Qatar. But that didn't stop the government from dreaming big. They simply decided to borrow billions to make their vision a reality. The plan? Invest in infrastructure, build towering skyscrapers, shopping malls, and modern cities. Projects that would supposedly pull the nation into a golden era of prosperity. But from the very start, the math didn't add up. Because while the Malaysian people were being promised a better future behind closed doors, the fund's money was being funneled into anything but public good. It all began with a so-called strategic partnership between 1MDB and a company named Petro-Saudi International. The deal looked impressive on the surface, a joint venture to explore oil fields and generate wealth for Malaysia. There was just one problem. Petro-Saudi didn't own the oil fields it promised to bring into the deal. The assets were imaginary. But that didn't stop $1 billion in real, hard cash from flowing out of Malaysia's sovereign wealth fund. And where did that money actually go? Not to oil fields, not to development. It went straight into a shell company. A company controlled by none other than Jho Low. The name of that company, Good Star Limited. In just one move, Jho Low had diverted $700 million into his own private account. And no one, not the Malaysian parliament, not the financial watchdogs, not even the people knew it had happened. He was a magician. But instead of pulling rabbits out of a hat, he made billions disappear right into his pockets. And with that money, the legend of Jho Low began. He bought a $250 million super yacht, the Equanimity, so luxurious it could break through Arctic ice. He splurged on artwork dollar, $137 million worth, including pieces by Monet and Picasso. He lavished gifts on celebrities. Miranda Kerr received matching pink diamond jewelry worth $8 million. At one point, he even gifted her a see-through acrylic grand piano, too large to move out of her house after they broke up. And if the story sounds like something out of a Hollywood movie, that's because it literally became one. Jho Low wasn't just living the high life. He was producing it. With the stolen billions, he helped finance the film The Wolf of Wall Street, a movie about fraud, excess, and financial crime, funded by the exact same crimes it condemned. The irony was almost poetic. Leonardo DiCaprio, the star of that film, even thanked Jho Low and Najib's stepson Riza Aziz during his award speeches. At the time, no one really asked where the money had come from, or rather they didn't want to know, because the truth was too dangerous, and those who tried to expose it paid a terrible price. While Jho Low partied across the globe and Malaysia's elite lined their pockets, a quiet storm was building behind the scenes. It started with whispers. Journalists and financial analysts began to notice strange patterns: missing funds, questionable transactions, and a towering pile of debt that didn't match the promises made by one MDB. But in Malaysia, asking questions about power was dangerous. The media was tightly controlled, and the few who dared to investigate faced intimidation, threats, and worse. Still, some refused to stay silent. One of them was Claire Rewcastle-Brown, a relentless British journalist who ran the Sarawak Report. She started publishing stories about the financial black hole at the heart of 1MDB, but she needed proof, hard evidence. And that's when a whistleblower appeared. In a tense, secretive meeting in Bangkok, the whistleblower revealed the smoking gun official documents showing that $700 million had been siphoned directly into Jho Low's company. The truth was out, but exposing that truth came at a terrible cost. The whistleblower, Xavier Justo, was thrown into a Thai prison, branded a criminal, tortured, and forced to sign false confessions. 547 days. That's how long he spent behind bars, simply for telling the truth. He later recalled the moment they threatened his wife and son. "I had no options," he said. "Either I die or I sign whatever they want. If they asked me to confess I killed JFK, I would have signed that too." This is how far corruption stretched its hand to silence anyone who dared expose it. And back in Malaysia, things were only getting darker. The Attorney General, who began an official inquiry into 1MDB, was suddenly removed. His replacement, a loyalist who declared there was no wrongdoing, the investigation was shut down. Files disappeared. And the Prime Minister, Najib Razak, remained untouchable. But as history has often taught us, no cover-up lasts forever. In the United States, investigators were quietly gathering their own evidence. Billions had been laundered through American banks, used to buy real estate in New York and Los Angeles, to gamble in Las Vegas, and to fund Hollywood blockbusters. And in June 2015, $681 million had landed directly in Najib Razak's personal bank account. A sitting prime minister, caught red-handed. Najib's explanation: it was a gift from a Saudi prince, a gift of nearly $700 million. To this day, few can say that with a straight face, but Najib wasn't worried. He was still in control. The protests in Kuala Lumpur grew larger, the people demanded answers, but Najib held the institutions in his fist. The Anti-Corruption Commission was silenced, Investigators were arrested. Even a young lawyer involved in drafting an arrest warrant against Najib was found dead, his body burned beyond recognition. The message was clear: stand against us, and you will disappear. By 2016, the scandal had grown too big to hide. The FBI and the US Department of Justice made their move, launching a massive investigation under the Kleptocracy Asset Recovery Initiative. In a bold press conference, the world learned the staggering truth: $4.5 billion had been stolen from the Malaysian people. It wasn't just about lavish spending anymore. This was grand theft on a global scale. Jho Low had used the stolen money to buy luxury apartments in Manhattan, Beverly Hills mansions, and priceless works of art. He spent $250 million on a super yacht, $35 million on a private jet, and over $137 million on fine art. The United States began seizing these assets. The super yacht was captured. The jet was grounded. Even the pink diamonds gifted to celebrities were taken back. But while the United States was clawing back stolen wealth, Najib Razak continued his reign in Malaysia. He dismissed critics, laughed off accusations, and in front of cameras he continued to insist, "I am innocent." He still had the military. He still controlled the courts. And most importantly, he controlled the narrative. Also, he thought, in 2018, Malaysia stood at a crossroads. The nation was heading into one of the most critical elections in its history. For 6 decades, Coalition had never lost power. But something was different this time. The people were tired. Tired of the empty promises. Tired of the corruption. Tired of watching their country's wealth vanish while their children's futures crumbled before their eyes. And then, in a twist no one expected, the man who had once mentored Najib Mahathir Mohamad, now in his 90s, returned to the political battlefield. He joined forces with his former enemy, Anwar Ibrahim, to do the unthinkable: bring down the government. It was a moment of extraordinary political drama. Rivals became allies. Old wounds were set aside for the sake of saving a nation. And against all odds, the impossible happened. Najib Razak lost the election. For the first time in modern Malaysian history, the ruling party was thrown out of power. Across the country, people poured into the streets, cheering, crying, celebrating a new chapter of hope. But for Najib, the celebration was over. Within days, his properties were raided. Police carried out 284 boxes stuffed with luxury handbags, 72 bags filled with cash, jewelry and watches. The total value? Nearly $1 billion Malaysian ringgit in cash and luxury goods, hidden in plain sight. And then came the moment the world had waited for. Najib Razak was arrested. Najib Razak's arrest sent shockwaves across the globe. For the first time, a sitting or former Prime Minister of Malaysia faced the full weight of justice. And yet, even as the trial began, the drama was far from over. Inside the courtroom, Najib played the victim. He claimed ignorance, that he didn't know where the money had come from, that he trusted the wrong people, that everyone from his advisors to his own family had betrayed him. "I was too trusting," he said. "I never imagined it was part of a scheme to defraud anyone." But there it was, his signature on every key document, every billion-dollar bond sale, every shady financial deal. And when confronted with the infamous $681 million deposited directly into his personal bank account, Najib shrugged. It was a gift, he claimed, from a Saudi prince. A simple token of friendship. No favors were exchanged. No promises made. Just a casual $700 million. Even now, Najib's denials echo through history. But as his defenses crumbled in court, the Malaysian people watched the proceedings with bated breath. Would justice finally be served? Or would this just become another story of a powerful man escaping punishment? In the end, the verdict came down hard. Najib Razak was found guilty of corruption, abuse of power, and money laundering. He was sentenced to 12 years in prison. But even then, the fight wasn't over. Appeals were filed, political favors were called in, and the machinery of power, though weakened, still worked quietly behind the scenes. And what about the man who started it all, the architect of the entire scheme, Jho Low? He had simply disappeared, vanished into thin air. last seen hiding somewhere between Macau, Hong Kong, and mainland China, shielded, perhaps, by those who found his wealth and secrets too valuable to expose. To this day, his exact whereabouts remain a mystery. Some say he's living under a false identity. Others believe he's a ghost quietly slipping through borders, always one step ahead of justice. One thing is certain, he remains the ultimate symbol of how money, power, and corruption can still outrun accountability. In the aftermath of the scandal, a hard truth settled over Malaysia. Yes, a corrupt leader had fallen. Yes, the people had found their voice. But the damage, the real damage, had already been done. The stolen billions, gone. The infrastructure projects that could have lifted millions out of poverty, never built. Hospitals, schools, roads sacrificed for luxury yachts and casino nights. And it wasn't just about Malaysia. The 1MDB scandal exposed the cracks in the entire global financial system. It showed how easily banks like Goldman Sachs turned a blind eye when the profits were big enough. How accountants, lawyers, and advisors became willing accomplices earning millions by helping billionaires hide their crimes. It revealed that corruption doesn't need a dark alley or a backroom deal. It thrives in glass skyscrapers, in luxury hotels, in boardrooms filled with men in expensive suits. And for every dollar stolen, it's the ordinary people who pay the price. Through higher taxes, through crumbling public services, through dreams deferred and futures lost. But perhaps the greatest tragedy of all is that even after all this, men like Jho Low still roam free, and the systems that allowed him to rise remain largely unchanged.